Hey everyone, I'm Dee and I'm the founder of Dirt Magicians. And I want to share with you what it is that we are trying to do with the Dirt Magicians platform. For me personally, having community has been so very important. Firstly, because for my own mental health, and secondly, because it gives me a strong sense of belonging and purpose in this world. And I crave it so very deeply. And it's this lifelong yearning for community that has really driven me to create Dirt Magicians. The vision is to build community of people that are growing food. And what I'm envisioning is these spaces where people that are growing food can come together, both online as well as offline, and create these deep, meaningful relationships and also teach each other how to grow food, because it's one of the best ways of learning how to grow food. I want to share a personal story of my journey of having community, losing it completely, aching desperately for it, and then refinding it. It's what ultimately brought me to the vision of Dirt Magicians. And in the second part of the video, I will share a story of a pilot that we ran here locally in Vancouver, where we created a community of food gardeners and some of the amazing things that we learned and that we witnessed along the way. It's a bit of a longer video, so I'd say pause the video right now, grab a hot drink, and just settle in for the story. I was born and raised in India till I was a teenager, and I grew up around people that I really loved, big groups of friends and a very tight-knit extended family. When I was around 15, my parents decided that they were going to immigrate to Canada, which meant that we were going to have potentially better financial opportunities, but it also meant that we were going to lose that community that gave us that sense of deep-rootedness. It was right after my 16th birthday that we were flying to Canada. 50 people showed up to the airport to say goodbye, and I was crying the entire time. I was practically inconsolable. I was hugging my grandmother, my friends, my cousins, and even my first boyfriend, who was super cute, and we had just started dating. He had been my crush for so very long. This was tough. It really honestly was one of the toughest experiences that I went through. I felt so lost and so untethered. We were going to this new country, this new city. What would become of us? It was honestly so scary. And like many new immigrants, being so uprooted was very hard because we were coming to this new place and had to adapt to these foreign ways of living. An example would be buying food from a sanitized grocery store as opposed to just a roadside stand where you could buy produce and you knew the owner on a first name basis. And we also had to adapt to a much, much colder climate. And really that was very alienating and very challenging. And things weren't all that dandy in my new high school either. I was bullied a lot for my Indian accent. So I'd go home and spend countless hours just watching MTV and trying to imitate the VJs and copy their North American accent. I was home alone a lot because my parents were gone all the time, working 2 different jobs, just trying to make enough money to pay the bills and just barely scrape by. This is when I felt incredibly lonely. And this is also probably the time my first bout of clinical depression started to set in. My alienation was tightening, and my ache for community was going from just an ache to a scream. Fortunately, going away to university gave me a fresh start. I was surrounded by all these kids that wanted to meet other people and build community. It took me a couple of years to meet the right people, but after that, I had a real sense of belonging. I felt like I finally found my tribe here in Canada. After I left university, I had the opportunity to backpack across the world. And it was then that I had my first and probably biggest aha moment about the power of food in creating deep connection very quickly. One of the most impactful experiences that I had on my travels was when I volunteered and lived at a farm where I was with other like-minded individuals, and we were growing food, foraging, and cooking with the ingredients that were from the land. And what I was amazed by is how over just a couple of weeks, I formed such deep, lasting relationships. Versus in the past, I had to fight really hard in order to grow such friendships and over a very long period of time. At that farm, a seed of an idea was planted. You'll just have to wait a little bit more in the video to see how that seed turned into a beautiful plant. That seed was watered in 2015 when my mother started her first organic vegetable garden. She was growing a bunch of stuff, and she had also put in about 4 zucchini plants. And anyone that's grown zucchini knows that 4 zucchini plants will yield about 100 zucchini. No exaggeration, right? She now wanted to give the zucchini away to everyone, including her neighbors. And interestingly, she didn't have any meaningful relationships with her neighbors up until that point, but giving away zucchini just opened the doors for natural organic friendship. All of a sudden, my parents had someone that they could count on to mow their lawn and to pick up their mail when they were traveling. I was astounded by this sort of like evolution, and that zucchini had this ability to build bridges where there were none. While I had all these aha moments around growing food and building community, I ended up quite far away from that in the tech industry, growing a software startup. In 2016, my daughter Aria arrived in this world. I was able to sell my software startup, and I had a beautiful opportunity to stay home with her. As a full-time mama, I started thinking about the world that Aria is growing up in. I started worrying about all of the environmental and social issues we were facing, and that her generation was definitely going to face in a more pronounced way. I didn't want her to end up in a world without community or connection as our environment was changing. That seed I mentioned earlier started to germinate in the summer of 2020. I was driving around the suburbs of all places. As I was passing lawn after lawn, this vision kept coming to me of people growing food in all of these pieces of land. My past experiences had taught me that this could be a solution to help heal our food systems, our earth, and our lost connection to each other. And I thought, hey, I want to give this to my daughter. And this is where the idea for Dirt Magicians starts to grow into something more tangible, a way to create connection and community where people learn how to grow food and they learn how to do this from each other. And when I started thinking of people, I thought, why not dream big? Why not think millions of people, hundreds of millions of people even? While I could see the beauty of the vision, the idea of making it happen scared the crap out of me. Like, where do I even begin? And voila, I was introduced to Brie through a common friend who I'd shared the vision with. Brie had long seen the food system as a place with so much environmental destruction, but also as an opportunity for healing. She was an urban farmer who had both studied and worked in agriculture and had also studied permaculture. And I wouldn't have known it then, but it was the beginning of a magical friendship and partnership. Brie and I found this community of Groville. We're not sharing the real name of the community to protect their privacy. And this is where we started a pilot in the community to test some ideas. We were testing if it was possible to educate people to grow food and create deep friendships and connections between food gardeners. We ran the idea by Groville residents, and we couldn't believe how excited they were to participate in a pilot, not only to grow food, but also to get to know their neighbors better. 2021, year 1 of the Groville pilot. COVID made this year really challenging, but we found some creative ways around it. We taught our Groville piloters all of the fundamentals of growing food, and most of this had to happen on Zoom because of the pandemic. Brie also worked with them in their yards as their garden coach. And some of the piloters had never put a seed in the ground. It was not only Brie who was teaching them, we had other wise teachers as well. We learned from an Indigenous teacher, Lori Snyder, about weeds and neighborhood plants being edible medicines like chickweed, clover, dandelion, etc. Our favorite quote from this time was when Trisha, one of our sassiest piloters, was hunched over dandelion in her grass and said, "I can't believe I'm eating the effing lawn." Groville piloters even had a cocktail competition making creative cocktails and teas with wild weeds and flowers that they had foraged in their own yards and around the neighborhood. Lori taught everyone a new paradigm, how gardeners can practice reciprocity in their gardens. Reciprocity has been a part of many Indigenous cultures. So, how do we practice this in our gardens? By making sure that our gardens are not only feeding us, but they're also feeding the birds, bees, butterflies, and other beneficial insects and billions of soil organisms. This lesson fed perfectly into our next teacher, Linda Gelkinson, an entomologist who taught us that insect populations on the planet are dying out rapidly. This isn't good for us humans because our existence depends on insects. They do all of the pollination for us and feed many, many creatures in our ecosystem. But Linda wasn't all doom and gloom. She brought us hope by showing us that our gardens are perfect places to create havens for insects, bees, butterflies, and revive their dying populations. Our piloters jumped on this way of making a difference. They were so proud to create food for the bees, butterflies, and beneficial insects. They planted lots and lots of pollinator-friendly flowers and native plants. So the community flourished. They were growing food for themselves and the bees. They were chatting and connecting. It was beautiful to watch. My theory that people wanted to learn how to grow food and connect with each other had been validated. 2022, year 2 of the Growville pilot. In 2021, we mostly tested educating our piloters, but in 2022, we had a chance to really test ideas that built community. This year, we switched to creating online garden circles where gardeners met bi-weekly to share their garden experiments, successes, and failures. We also created do-withs, where you informally teach your neighbors a skill that you have. Your neighbors just come and they do with you like bread making, composting, and canning. We also started an apprenticeship program where the experienced gardeners taught newbies to grow food. All of this made the friendships and bonds stronger. And the learning from each other was really powerful to witness. We also observed that friendships that blossomed around growing food were special. When one of our piloters had a devastating personal incident, the rest of the piloters banded together to clean up her fall garden. It was so incredible to see that these people were virtually strangers 18 months ago and were now rallying together this way. Year 2 taught us that communities built around food are strong and resilient. But we're not at hundreds of millions of people yet. So, what comes next? How do we scale? Well, our team grew from 2, Brie and I, to 5 to make the next steps happen. Dan, Josh, and Doug came on board to take us to the next level. We started growing communities of food gardeners on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. And as we connect and share education, we're also learning what our communities of gardeners want. So where are we now? After 2 years in Growville and 1 year online. We learned so much about what beginners need in Growville that we created this awesome course called Becoming a Dirt Magician, a step-by-step learning journey of how to grow food while supporting healthy ecosystems. We wanted this to be a one-of-a-kind course that felt dreamy like The Biggest Little Farm. And we wanted it to feel accessible, so we filmed it with members of our Growville community acting as students, so you can learn with them. This is Juan from Film Crafters, and he brought this course to life with his amazing filmmaking skills. The course will also have online garden circles for beginner gardeners to share their learning journey with each other and stay accountable. We learned on this journey that there's tons of incredibly intelligent and thoughtful gardeners who are providing gardening education for free online. We hope to bring them on as garden coaches for this course. They've done fantastic work, and we want to show that this deserves to be financially compensated. In 2023, we're hoping to replicate and scale what we did as a model in Growville and bring it to many other communities. And we're still figuring out exactly how we want to go about doing this. In order to reach the vision to empower hundreds of millions of people, we know that we can't do this alone. We have to work with amazing urban gardeners and community activators just like yourself in order to be able to co-create this vision together. This is so much bigger than just us. And this is where I would love to invite you into having a conversation with me and having a conversation with my team and sharing and exchanging ideas so that we can grow this vision together. So if you've got ideas, I'd love to hear from you and love to co-create with you. So send me a message either on my email, contact@mahi.io, or on our Dirt Magicians Instagram page. And all of the socials and the emails will be linked in the description box below. Thank you for taking the time to stop by and listen to this story. It truly meant a lot to be able to share this with you.